Hello and welcome to the Isaac Project. So, when Abraham lamented and Sarah laughed at the idea that they could have a child in their old age, we all learned an eternal truth. God's callings don't really work within human timelines. Today, the Church of England needs the same reminder, and probably some other churches in the world too. I just so happen to know about the Church of England. Across England, faithful Christians, and probably across the world, in their 50s, 60s, and beyond are hearing God's call to ordained ministry. I know this through a friend of mine. She's asked me not to work on her behalf, but now I'm mad for everyone. And people are getting told they're too old to pursue a call that God has given them within the Church of England. These individuals bring decades of life experience, professional expertise, spiritual maturity, and not to mention financial stability. If we are going to speak to the church's soul, we may as well also speak to its pocketbook, because, yeah. God knows that matters. We have former teachers, business leaders, healthcare workers, and way more with invaluable skills that are being turned away simply because of their birth year. And as a member of the queer community, it's not the first time I've seen birth certificates pulled in order to justify completely bogus policies that limit people's lives, that make the world a lonelier, more disconnected place. These are people who have spent their lives in service to others often, and now wish to serve God in their communities in a new way through ordained ministry, and are facing closed doors based solely on age. This is not just about older people seeking ordination, though. This is about every single person who I have met who is lonely, angry, searching, and aching for a place to belong. It is about any person, young, old, queer, doubting, or devoted, who needs a church to make room for them. Who needs a place to make room for them? It doesn't even need to be the church, but the Church of England has an opportunity right now. And when the Church of England tells older adults that they are too old to be priests, it sends a way deeper message than just, oh, sorry, we're following policy. It says that we only value certain kinds of people, and that God's callings and promises have an expiration date. That is not just absurd, it's unbiblical. And that message ripples out to every person who has been harmed, been sidelined, been disqualified, been unseen, been unheard in the faith community in the Church of England, but also in the Christian church in general, and also in religions in general. I am of a young generation who is walking away from religion and sometimes spirituality entirely because of BS like this. And if it is happening to people who could be my grandmother, people who should be venerated and appreciated for the lives of contribution that they have made, time, talents, and treasure, who are we to say to the young that we want to bring them into our churches, that we are going to love them well, that we are going to respect their voices? It's empty. It's empty. I'm young. I'm married to my beautiful husband. I am also a person who doesn't have kids yet, which means I have so much time. So much time. And to boot, I have my own money. I know. Young person, time, talent, energy, treasure. I got it all. Church of England wants to recruit me. I say absolutely not, unless there's a lot more act cleaning up that happens. Because I grew up Roman Catholic and I did not come back to a different denomination to see more forms of exclusion. If we can lead as the Church of England on including women in ministry, how are we not leading on including older people in the ministry? Boggles my mind. Maybe it was just an oversight. I don't know. The old people were taught not to be loud. We all have an American in the house now, and I'm sorry. We have a lot of flaws, but we are willing to call bullshit when we see it. Oh, somebody upset because I swore? Okay, well, this is what you get. You want the young people, you want the millennials. This is the spice that we come with. I'm sorry. If it's too spicy for you, I'll do a bleeped version. I have had a call literally since high school. So when I was in high school, those little career quizzes that they have you do, I was a little too honest. It was like, do you want to work physically with your body and do back-breaking labor? I was like, not really. Do you want to do a lot of math? Do you like spreadsheets? I was like, no. It was like, do you like stories? I was like, yeah. Do you like people? I was like, yeah. Do you like helping? I was like, oh, sign me up. I love to be helpful. I'm a first child in a, family, and I'm a recovering A student, okay? I would love to get an A in life, in morality, in existing on this planet, okay? See, these are my issues. I'm just laying them out here for you. But I'm also the A student who's friends with all the class clowns and who saw how brilliant they were and how crappy they were treated. And I've never gotten over it. And so now I'm having my rebellious stage in my 30s when I have access to the internet and adult money and a lot of time on my hands because I was one of those birth lottery babies. And so, yeah, I got money from my beautiful Grammy who was back there. She wrote me a check earlier this year because she says to her grandchildren, look, I want you to enjoy your freedom in your young life. And this is what I'm using my freedom for. I'm sick of people getting excluded. I think it's bullshit. So yeah, that career quiz that I told you about was raised Roman Catholic. It told me I should be a priest. And I was like, no, I got the wrong equipment for that. Can't do that. Can't do that. I didn't like church. Thought it was boring. Got my little bum tap to, make sure I kneel up and do the Holy Catholic and Apostolic Calisthenics routine properly. Hated that. Hated that I was told that if you had sex before marriage, in my confirmation class I was told this, that it was like being dirty bowling shoes. And who wants dirty bowling shoes? I was like, this makes no sense. You try on the bowling shoes to figure out which ones fit you. You try on shoes to make sure which ones fits you. Teacher, have you never tried on shoes in your life? Have you gotten some kind of typhoid from the shoe? Had another priest go up in front of our congregation and say, look, seen a distinct lack of respect for our Lord. Too many people wearing flip-flops in here. Our Lord doesn't feel respected when you walk in wearing flip-flops. Went to a Catholic school where we had, you weren't allowed to wear shorts to church on Fridays because God forbid God see your knees. Now, girls' knees were fine. We could wear our skirts, we could wear our skirts, but boys' knees, ew, gross. God says they've got cooties on Fridays in church. It's not acceptable. During the day, it's fine. But our Lord feels disrespected by the knees of young boys. Was it like a temptation thing for the priest? I don't know. I don't know what was going on. All horrific jokes aside. So, I was supposed to be a priest. I realized I couldn't. And then I continued walking through my life after this, Catholic elementary school experience. Had a good time. There were some great songs at Vacation Bible School. I'm not saying it was a bad experience. I didn't get touched as a kid. Unlike some people. And I'm... My parents who brought me into that environment also have stepped away from that environment, seeing how poorly it's been handled. And I've stepped back in after going through my college years and hearing all kinds of things about queer people. And luckily, I was in a liberal town. I was in a town where I had churches with pride flags. I, of course, chose the one without the pride flag because I was like, what is church without a little bit of oppression? I literally had a conversation with one of my Catholic friends. I was like, I can't go to the Unitarian Universalist Church because it's just so unobjectionable. There's nothing to chafe against. And now, in my late 20s, I moved to England. I'm living with my partner, and we got engaged. This past year we got married. Did I get married in the church? No. Because it doesn't want to marry queer people. I've got a lot of queer friends. We had a very queer accepting wedding, blessing. But I'm not going to get married in a church that won't marry my people. Legal ceremony, church blessing. Is it a covenanted marriage? I don't know. Frankly, I don't care at this point. Like, I do care. Actually, I do care. I would rather have that be a part of my life. Would be great. Would be great for a lot of people I know. But so the Church of England, I found this place that has just this perfect combination of archaic BS and incredible human beings that are willing to move the needle on that BS. And I've had members of my clergy team come to me and be like, oh, maybe this is too soon to say to you, but, do you have a call toward ministry? And I'm like, look, I've been fighting it for years. Literally since high school. Probably earlier than that. I was that kid that was in, vacation Bible school who was like, church is boring, but being a nun sounds dope. I get to read books and, ponder mysteries. Sign me up. But also, I feel like, boys are cute. And I later find out that girls are also cute. I ended up with a boy, though, so I don't know. Something about that indoctrination worked okay. No, I love my husband. He's God sent. He's beautiful. Yeah, all that aside. So I'm I am in this church. I finally like it. Finally trust it. Finally am having a good experience with my small church community. And then I hear about this BS that's happening to my friend who's being told, you're too old to get ordained. She loves the Eucharist way more than me, but the possibility that I could celebrate that before her, it rustles my jimmies. And so I realized why I keep having this block toward moving forward. And this church is not worthy of the time and treasure of my life if it disqualifies somebody who is way better than me, way kinder, way more patient, way more humble, way more pleasant, way more understanding of other people. I'm a little quicker to judge, if you haven't noticed. But in the immortal words of a character in Terry Pratchett's universe, the judgment comes first. The judgment comes before the mercy. And of course it's not my judgment, but look to the book. Christians love citing the Bible. We've got Elizabeth. If you don't like Abraham and Sarah, we've got Elizabeth. We've got a whole lot of older people called to incredible, unexpected things. Unbiblical for the Church of England to ignore that. So, I have not walked this far in my faith. I have not survived the experience that I had of Roman Catholicism that convinced me that tits were a barrier to entry to the priesthood, to let something as small and as small-hearted as this church, this human church, to stop me from bearing witness to the love present here on this earth. No language, no policy, no guys, gals, or non-binary pals in fancy robes and hats are going to stop me at this point. And it shouldn't stop others. Shouldn't stop you. But just because I have grown comfortable, I have had to grow comfortable with the idea that power corrupts and institutions of any size can do just as much harm as they can do good, does not mean others should have to suffer the same disillusionment. Our church can do better, and the fact that it is not doing better is a choice. It is a choice. And we can make a different one. If our church is to be worthy of its survival and justly deploy its considerable wealth for the benefit of all God's people, we must welcome all comers to pursue their callings. How dare the church and its leaders close doors that God has called his people to open? How dare we bar paths that God has called her people to walk on? How dare we stand between God and their love working in this world of ours? We live in a time of disconnection, depression, and despair. And if you're not experiencing then great for you. I am so glad for whatever delusion or condition or experience or privilege is allowing you to live in a place where you have not experienced any of those things. People, including me, I've been to the edge and walked back. That's why I'm here. I was ready to leave, realized that there was no good ways out of this life other than going in my sleep, and God wasn't taking me. And so I stuck around and I was like, well, I'm here. What am I going to do? And the only logical answer was to try to make things less miserable for myself and everybody else. So I'm here to have a good time. And the admin of the Church of England is contributing to me not having a less good time. And so therefore this. People are craving places and gatherings and roles of meaning, service, and intergenerational and inter-identity and inter-politics love. Church can be a place for that. It has been a place for that for me. In preparation for my wedding, I knew I was going to have non-binary people in the audience, and I know there's a whole lot of transphobia in this country. And so we were going to sing the servant song. And so in the Church of England, the version of it is, brother, sister, let me serve you. And the Catholic version I grew up with is, will you let me be your servant? It's the first line of the song. And I love that of my Catholicism. It's non-gendered, and it's a question of consent. Not let me serve you, not let me do this for you. Will you let me take on the role as your servant? Consent. Let me be as Christ to you. Pray that I may have the grace to let you be my servant too. It's a giving, it's a receiving. So we're craving all these things, and yet we reject those with the most life experience who are, in my opinion, most equipped to provide and host and facilitate those kinds of environments. They're already doing it. Who's running your church coffee hour? That's right. It's probably one of these people who are in this 50+ range who have time and love to share. Who have probably worked a heck of a hard life and been through a heck of a lot of stuff and made the same realization I did, which is that there is no point to any of it if we're not trying to be together and show love to each other and gather. And the work and the effort and the ongoing maintenance of that. There are plenty of, creators in our world. There are plenty of destroyers in our world. And yet we have our maintainers, our survivors, our elders who have kept going through so much, and we're going to tell them no. Makes no sense to me. Probably makes no sense to you. Please sign the petition. Save yourself the time. I'm going to keep talking. So to deny older ordinance is to deny the spiritual wisdom that can only come from lived experience. It is to silence the voices that have prayed longest, grieved deepest, loved widest, and it reinforces patterns of exclusion in the church that we cannot afford to uphold anymore. And if the church goes, may it go with God, because if we're lamenting that the church is dying, that attendance is down, and we're pulling this shit, we deserve it. We deserve to have empty churches if this is what passes for welcome. God's call does not come with an expiry date. We've talked about Sarah and Abraham. We're a people who should know that God does miraculous things to those who the world has deemed it's too late for. To turn away from that is to turn away from the gospel. to turn away from the Bible, to turn away from our principles, our ethics, our stories, our core narratives and mythologies and histories that make us all of this. Let us not reject the improbable. Let us not silence the faithful. Let us be a church that recognizes God's call comes when it comes, no matter the age of the vessel. What's at stake? I mean, we've talked about it. The church faces a critical choice. Continue excluding the wisdom, experience, and gifts of older candidates, or embrace the fullness of God's calling against all stages of life. The choice is ours. I mean, it's not exactly ours because there are people making the policies, but we can nag them. Fix it, please, with love, with grace, with fire, but also with the warmth of the fire. It doesn't need to burn you. Take a couple steps back. Turn down the volume. I don't know. Do what you need to do. Take care of yourself. Oh, also, I'm curious. I'm thinking about sidebar, but masks in churches if people are sick. I think we should do that. I'm not good at that because it scares me because I don't want people to think I'm scary with a mask across my face. But if other cultures can do it, if our I don't know if I hope this isn't a bad thing to say, but if Asian cultures can manage to figure out that cover your cough isn't just and then start shaking hands or and then start shaking hands at peacetime. No, we gotta mask it up, babies. That's a part of inclusivity for our people who are chronically ill. God said look after the sick. Freaking look after the sick. We need to look after the sick. Anywho, back to the focus. Again, this affects everybody. There are inclusivity issues here that one is emblematic of the next. It's all connected, comes up on a string. So here we go. At stake is not just the ministry potential of the individuals, but the church's own witness to God's abundant grace. Great line. Love it. As congregations increasingly include older members, we're talking plenty about how it's pensioners, it's older people in our community who are keeping our churches alive. I've seen this at my place, but newsflash, we have a lovely church and we're attracting younger families. But the only way that they're going to stay and the only way that their kids aren't going to call bullshit is if we work on some of these contradictions. So ministry by those who understand the long history of the church and the life experiences of the church. Because my church has experienced some major trauma in the past. I don't know all the details, but I know that it was our now senior members who kept our church alive. Ending these upper age limits would be one step of many that need to happen to continue bringing fresh energy and perspective into a church and honoring the biblical truth that God calls people at every stage. We've got Samuel's youth and Abraham's old age. Without change, we lose the prophetic voices, pastoral wisdom, and practical skills of entire generations. With this policy. Why now? Why not now? That's my cheeky answer. But no, I've written some stuff about that too. So, the CV stands at a crossroads regarding who can serve in ordained ministry. We have issues with clergy numbers. People need relief, they need backup, and we're going to need the numbers to make that happen. We've got changing parish needs. We cannot afford, and it makes no sense, to turn away called, gifted, qualified individuals based on arbitrary age restrictions. The biblical witness is clear. God doesn't check birth certificates when issuing a call. I've called this thing the Isaac campaign because I think God is funny. I think he's in on the joke. I think when Sarah laughed when he was like, you're going to have a kid. And then has Isaac, and Isaac is this name that reflects that laughter, that joy. I'm going to call it the Isaac campaign. Because we need to have humor at God's unexpected twists and turns. We need to recognize the miraculous. We need to, and this crosses issues. There's the miraculous of, an old person having the baby. There's a miraculous of somebody co-creating with God a body that feels good to them. There is the miraculous of, religious figures changing their names. Oh my gosh, you've changed your name? We have an easy time he goes from whoever he was before to now he's Leo the 14th, I believe, who's our new pope. I say our because I live in the hour of the Church of England and the hour of my Roman Catholic upbringing. Sorry, y'all. If you're feeling strict about it, I'm not your guy. So I'm living in the both. If any of that resonates with you, sign the petition. This will help ensure that the church welcomes the gifts of those called to ministry regardless of age. So, what's the formal call to action? What are my demands? I don't really have demands, It's a request, because demanding, it's got control stuff, and I don't like that. It's got childhood things there. I don't need that. So, it's a question. I wonder what it would be like if, to put it in being with terms. I'm learning. We wonder what it would be like if the Church of England eliminated all age-based barriers to discernment, training, and ordination processes and pathways. What would it be like? I wonder what it would be like if we created inclusive pathways that celebrate and utilize the unique gifts older candidates bring. Any candidates bring, but specifically in this case, our older candidates. I wonder what it would look like if we expand funding opportunities for ministerial training to embrace candidates at all life stages. I wonder what it would look like if we implemented discernment processes that evaluate candidates solely on their gifts and callings, not their birth date or any other dang thing on their birth certificate. And I leave you with this question from Genesis 18:14. Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? Too full of wonder, too full of awe, too freaking weird? Is anything too wonderful for the Lord? I don't think so. I think this is an excellent question to be asking. I urge the Church of England to ask itself these questions about older ordinands and about its inclusivity in general. I urge you to sign this petition to support the Isaac campaign and help ensure that the church welcomes the gifts of those called to ministry at every age. And from Esther 4:14, for such a time as this. For such a time as this, when everything is divided, everything is uncertain, people are scared, people need to see and to know love. And it would behoove our churches to be a better example of that. Thanks for listening. If you got any questions, you can ask them. I might not answer, but I might answer. Your mileage may vary. It just depends on time and whether I can be asked. That's one of my favorite Britishisms that I've added since I came over here. And I, like one of the kids at the church, that used to think that it was like asked, like as in a donkey, like couldn't be asked, like couldn't be put through the work of it, like because like donkeys are like working animals, or like couldn't be asked. Like I thought that it was asked, like, oh, you could ask me to do a thing, but I'm not going to do it. But apparently it's like got a little bit of profanity in there. So again, if you can't take the spice, stay out of this particular kitchen. There's a reason why I've got to be careful when I'm working in children's ministry, because I got to dial that down. But there's a reason I'm not working in elementary schools here. I'm talking to adults. That's why I'm working with the older people, okay? I know how to choose an audience. I might like disturb some of the grandmas out there, but they'll get through it. Either they find the fun or they leave, okay? But anyhow, okay. Love you, bye. I hope you have a good day. I hope that the world smells good to you. I hope you have clothes that are soft and have good textures. Yes, I am neurodivergent, but that's a different story. Love you, bye. Yeah. Will you let me be your servant? I don't know. Will you?